All right, this is the origin story.
Okay.
This is my Batman story.
Okay.
Because Batman was the other thing I wanted to be when I was a kid.
Okay.
Yeah.
That didn't quite work out, but I figured.
Well, there's still hope.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm still working on that. I'm working on the $1 billion part
That's what I'm
first.
saying. You have some time.
Then I can become the superhero.
Have you bought any Bitcoin? Because maybe.
I'm gonna do that when I get out of here.
Yeah.
I was I was 2 years. So the shelter. Going back to the shelter, I was 2 years in,
Mhm.
and I was gonna quit. And I had rehearsed my resignation letter, what I was gonna say to the director this one morning. I was sitting outside 7-Eleven. It was my pattern actually to go in and get coffee.
Okay.
7-Eleven coffee. So again, I'm not an aficionado by any means. Don't judge.
Hey,
Whatever's
I'll swing
convenient.
through a McDonald's drive-through. I'm not above it.
I go in to get my 7-Eleven coffee. I go to work. And I was sitting in my car stone-faced because I was just trying to think through carefully what I was going to tell Annette, the director of the shelter. And know that before my arrival, this shelter did not have a vet for 3 years. And they struggled. So they would sort of contract, pull in a vet here or there one day a week, do some spays and neuters, do some treatments, and leave again. And so there was never any consistency. And that's why their numbers were so horrible. They had some of the worst euthanasia numbers in the entire country at this shelter.
Wow.
So when I stepped in full time and started working with the staff, designing programs, like we were starting to make progress and headway.
Right.
But it was inside, it was just killing a part of me to keep going in and doing the euthanasias and directing staff. And I'm the one who basically decides which pet lives and which one is going to stay with us and which one
Mhm.
is not.
And that, I'm sure, has to weigh on you
Every day,
heavily.
30, 40, 50 pets.
Yeah.
It's my decision. And I'm just going through with a red pen saying, you'd mark an X on the one that wasn't going to stay.
Mhm.
And I just couldn't do it after 2 years.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting at 7-Eleven. I go in to get my coffee. I walk out, and sitting right outside the storefront was this homeless man, this unhoused gentleman with his dog, sitting right outside the storefront to my left. And when you've been a vet for long enough, you just start diagnosing. You just look at a dog from afar and you say, oh, that dog has, this dog had flea allergic dermatitis. We call it FAD, which is just a bad case of fleas.
Okay.
It's just chronic fleas. But when dogs, again, some of you guys probably know, when they have fleas long enough and bad enough, it does destroy the skin.
Right.
And this dog looked like a burn victim on its hind end.
Yikes.
So no hair, the skin was red and bumpy. And I just stepped over to the man and I said, introduced myself. I'm a Kwan, I'm a vet. And it looks like your dog has a chronic case of fleas. And he's like, I don't know what she has, but she's miserable. I'm miserable. And he was just desperate for help. And I could see it in his eyes. So I said, look, if you're here tomorrow, I'll return with something that should work. So that took me back to the shelter. I did not quit because as I admit now, I stole a $3 flea treatment from the shelter. I used to, for the longest time, I said it was $3 out of my pocket and 5 more minutes of my time.
But now you decided.
I stole the flea treatment.
But you could probably send him a check for $3.
I could. I don't know what the interest on that is today, 10 years later, but I think they're fine with it. It was just a little Capstar. It was just a little oral treatment that kills fleas on the spot. Saw that same guy next day. I treated the dog. Then I didn't see him for about 12 days. And again, a week and a half later, he was outside the 7-Eleven and walked up to him and the dog was already transformed.
Wow.
The hair was coming back. The infection was gone.
$3.
$3. And again, just literally 5 minutes of my time.
Yeah.
And the man sitting in the same spot, he just looked up at me with tears in his eyes. And he said, thank you for not ignoring me. And I remember I got a little emotional and I took a knee right next to him. And we had this moment and I made him this quiet little pledge. I said, I'm going to go out and find more people like you. And that was 15 years ago.
Gosh.
And I just started walking the streets.
If he only knew, you know?
Yeah, that was the moment that started all this. And I will put a cap on this. I will tell you, I ended up staying at the shelter for 3 more years because of that event. And I was so motivated to try and make a difference, realizing how precious the time that I give or that I had given to the shelter can make such a huge difference. Talking about the 5-minute calculation. And so I'm going to stay on a little longer. And in that time, we cut the euthanasia rate by 70%. We tripled the adoption rate. We built a brand new state-of-the-art shelter. It's probably the proudest moment of my career. I left 5 years later, like I said. And again, a number that you know, and I want anyone listening to know. When you work in a shelter, you are judged based on something called your live release rate. So that means dogs come in, what percentage of dogs walk out alive, live release rate. Our live release rate at the time when I arrived at that shelter in 2007 was 37%.
Oh,
Wow.
I don't, That's so bad.
That means more than 70% of the animals that walk through the door
Don't
never
make it.
don't make it.
Well, that's where people get the, oh, you can't take your dog to the shelter, they won't come out. Like, and statistically in that situation, yes, they would.
And back during the recession, this part of the state, Modesto, as you know, already suffers
Right.
economically. It's just a bad part of the state.
Yep.
37%. When I left, it was just over 70%.
Ah.
And now today it is 95%.
Oh,
It is considered no kill.
that's incredible. And I don't think people realize how incredible that is, especially at the volume of the amount of pets that go through there. Do you know how many pets are coming in like a month? Thousands?
Yeah, the annual census was around 23,000.
Yeah, that's tremendous. A lot of times, like a shelter will say, we have a live release rate of that 95%, but they might only have 50 pets coming in a month too. So at that volume, at that percentage,
And not only that, for those that they sort of establish their rescue or shelter as a no-kill,
yes.
they're usually pulling from shelters and selecting the dogs
Right.
they sometimes bring in. So sometimes, not always, sometimes they're taking the best of the best. They're taking the most adoptable. Again, at the municipality, we take whatever. These are dogs that are irredeemable for bites. They're sick. They have parvo. So you take that population of dogs out, and you still have a live release of 95% at a municipal shelter.
It's amazing.
That is impressive. Even I walked in, that's when I got Cora, and they said, "Today, you know what our live release rate is?" It blew me away. I was so happy for them in the shelter, and I said, "You know what? Because you guys are doing such a good job, I'm going to adopt a dog." That was not the plan, but I'm
Yeah.
going to adopt a dog, and here we are.
Yeah, it's neat how, like, I think that little bit of hope, that moment gave you so much wind in your sails. Like, to think you were gonna go in and quit, and then just that moment of hope just fueled you for so long, right? It's pretty cool. I always say, like, if you leave a little space for hope, it'll fill a room, you know? And you're a perfect testament of that.
One last tale on the whole street vet origin. One, you should know that that man that I saw size 7'11", I'd seen him 5 times before, and I'd walked right by him.
Huh.
But for whatever reason on that day, my mindset, I stepped over and I talked to him. And so when he said, "Thank you for not ignoring me," that's why it hit home or hit hard, is because I had ignored him before. And I don't know if he knew that or not,
Right.
but I had him and his dog. I had just blown right by, too busy with my day and what I had to do. And the other part is I didn't talk about the street vet work for 6 years. So from 2012, when I started doing it to almost 2017, I didn't tell a soul.
You were just out there doing it.
I didn't tell my partner. I didn't tell my kids. I didn't tell my mother.
Why do you think that is?
I've been asked that question. I've given it a lot of thought, and I think if I'm just being completely honest, I was carrying a lot of guilt for my days at the shelter, and I thought maybe this was a way to redeem myself. And so it wasn't about attention and I didn't want to be discouraged either. I didn't want to be at a dinner party and have someone say, "So Kwan, what are you doing in your free time?" I say, I kind of go out and I walk the streets. I look for homeless and treat their pets, and have them say, "Well, why would you enable them? They shouldn't have
Right.
pets. Why would you?" I just didn't want to hear that.
Yeah.
So yeah, this was my little weekend mission, and I just went out and did it.
Do you think also it was kind of like if you told people about it, you kind of had to face the fact that you were trying to right the scales? You know, like obviously this was not your fault that all these euthanizations were happening. And what do you do? And now you're out here doing the good. But if you talk about it, then it's almost like you have to face the fact that you're going,
Yeah.
I'm trying to save all these dogs because I'm trying to balance the scales.
Yeah, you're right. I didn't want to be faced with any questions, and
Yeah.
I just wasn't prepared. Like I said, if I was being judged in the eyes of God for my 5 years at the shelter, I felt like I was probably losing on that scorecard. And there was just a part of me that thought, you're just going to go out and help the pets that would never get help. Like
Yeah.
maybe you can balance the scales.
Well, thank the Lord. Here comes social media. And okay, yeah. So how did it happen? Because I'll tell you that I still very much so remember the first time I saw you on social media, because we were living in Venice, California, and we had just had a baby, and there was a homeless person in the alley just screaming and yelling, swinging at us with golf clubs, and we were like, our dogs were going crazy, and we're like, what do we do? You know, and we were so frustrated and so upset. And then I'm watching a video of you going out and helping these folks, and I'm like, oh, I'm conflicted because I am angry right now and I'm in dad mode and I'm protective. And I'm also going, yeah, how do I help? You know, so many of the homeless people on the streets have pets, and I believe in pets, and I believe in that bond between people and pets. And we've been near homeless so many times, and then I'm struggling with this. And I just remember just
Did he have
being
a pet?
oh, no, he did not. No,
Okay.
we had a pet at the time, and I remember through the fence, he would be like, like he loved animals, but that when he wasn't just off, off on drugs and stuff. But I think he would have had a pet if he would have had the ability or the
The
opportunity.
wherewithal.
Yeah, exactly.
So people ask, are you ever afraid or do you feel intimidated on the streets? And the answer is no, by and large, no.
Yeah.
Because the one thing you have to keep in mind is the people on the streets who have pets have to have it together enough to care for this pet, meaning they have to get up in the morning and feed it and do all the things that we do with our pets. And
Yeah.
if you're heavily addicted to drugs or so mentally ill, see, when I tell people, it's not the guy like holding up his pants, shouting at the cars.
Right.
He doesn't have a pet because he doesn't have it together enough to even own a pet. So the people that I help, they typically, they're lucid, they're friendly, they're always grateful, they have conversations. It's not to say they're not doing some sort of illicit drug or drinking heavily, to cope, who knows?
Yeah.
But they're usually just, yeah, pretty normal people.
If you're listening to this on the video, we're showing Dr. Kwan going out and helping some of these folks. And just, I think one thing that's really neat with them is you do see them and you are present with them. Do you have any stories that you'd want to share of someone that's been impactful recently? Like, when's the last time you went out and did Project Street Vet?
Last week. Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Any stories sitting in the top of your mind from last week?
No, last week was actually pretty routine.
Okay.
But
For
I guess
you,
routine. I
routine.
mean, for
yeah,
me,
I'm like, wait
Yeah.
a second.
if you guys came out, you'd be like, "Oh, this is
I would love
amazing."
to come with you sometime.
Yeah, you're right. What's routine to me for some is it feels like earth shattering. I remember I took a journalist out with me who writes for the AP
Okay.
nationally. She's a very big writer for the AP, and she
Okay.
wanted to do a big story on me. So I actually went to Oakland.
Okay.
I flew to Oakland where
Yep.
she was based, and we walked the streets in Oakland. I'd never walked the streets in this neighborhood of Oakland, and she was just blown away that I would just march into an encampment to a place I'd never been.
Yeah.
That she said I would never cross. I would never have just walked within 20
Right.
feet of this area, and I just go in and I'm a Kwan, I'm a vet. I see a pet. I walk up. I start talking. I remember she's what she said to me was pretty profound. It was cool. At the end of the day, she said that was one of the best days of my life.
Wow.
And she's been writing for 30 years,
Right.
all kinds of
Seen
stories.
amazing people and yeah.
But the way I approach people and the gratitude and sometimes the tears and the hugs and seeing the pets and
Right.
knowing they're getting help. Yeah, it's so again, that was just a routine day for me, but
Okay.
to her it was something she'd just never seen.
What is the most common medical issue among the pets that you treat on the street?